Welcome back to the Reseller Journey podcast. And in this episode, we got Cayley, Elaine breaking down her business, going into the future of reselling, and also some strategies and tips that she's using right now in 2025 to take the next step. So get your notepad ready, take some notes, because I know it's going to be really helpful for people that are just getting started when it comes to reselling clothing online. Let's get right into it. I want to know, what are some common mistakes that resellers are making right now when they first start out? How can they avoid some of these mistakes?
Mm, that's a really good question. I can think of a lot of things, but I know one that I've seen be really prevalent recently with the people I work with on the online space is that they don't determine what they have available to them before they decide to make a plan to start reselling. And so, we're following a lot of people online and we want to copy what people are doing because they're successful, which can be a great way to get started. But sometimes we don't have the same access to goods. Maybe somebody shops at the bins, but you don't have a bins near you. And so that is one mistake I see a lot of newer resellers making is just not determining what all they have access to so that they can make good decisions moving forward. And a way to avoid that would be actually spend some time and look at what sourcing opportunities you have around you, how often you could actually get to them, how long does it take you to drive there, and determining if that's right for your business.
Yeah, I felt like I came into that trap right away doing it when I first started, not knowing anything about clothing. And thankfully, I went to the bins, so your cost of goods is so low. But
Mhm.
I mean, just talking to other resellers, I feel like we all go through this season of like, it's a dollar. What else could go wrong? And you end up
Right.
buying these items that are like, they're okay, they're in good condition, but they just have such a bad sell through rate. I'll have people message me in the community and they go, "Hey, take a look at my store. What's going on?" And then you look at it and it's just a lot of stuff like Forever 21, Hollister, and you're like, "But I got it at the bins or I got it at the rummage sale." And it's crazy because it's a lot of work that goes into this. You know best that it's not easy, taking the photos, doing the listings, doing the item specifics, and you might as well take the time to actually get the good items first than to just start listing. I feel like that's a common thing in our community is like list, but not talked enough about what's like, what are you listing? you
Right.
know? So I think that's a big common pitfall. I was also guilty of that. So no worries. Do you think like if resellers want to set themselves up for success, that's what they need to focus on first before they start buying items?
Yeah, I definitely think so. I actually I've talked to a lot of resellers recently who actually decided to make a plan before they actually started reselling. And at first I thought it sounded so strange because myself and most resellers that I know, you just jump into it. It's trial and error. And I was like, what do you mean you're coming up with a plan before you're actually going to start selling? And it hit me that pretty much every business except for reselling, they make a plan beforehand. They have mock-ups, they do trial runs before they ever hit the ground. And I don't know why we don't do that. But it hit me really hard recently. And so, yes, I do recommend that, you look at everything and figure out what's going to work for you because what works for somebody else might not be sustainable for you. And I think that the most important thing to start off successfully is to make a good foundation. And you can only do that if you know what's sustainable for you.
Yeah. And it's such a I don't want to say like it's modular. I don't know if that's the right word, but like we all live in different areas. So it's
Mhm.
like what I'll find may be different than you. And so it's like we could watch the videos, but I like to tell people build the business how you want to build it. There's no like one way and that's it. It's like build it around your lifestyle. That's the beauty of, the entrepreneurship in, reselling is like fit it into your lifestyle, set a plan, set a sourcing schedule, set a listing schedule. But yeah, I feel like some people just think they need to start listing hundreds of items every day to start making money. And it's like such a dangerous trap because you could end up, because like on eBay, not everything sells the day you list it. So you got
Right.
to make sure like you manage your cash flow. Otherwise you can go out of business quick.
Yeah.
Um,
You gotta
and
manage
that's
your
why,
cash flow, you gotta
yeah,
manage your stress,
yeah.
everything.
A good thing too has always been, and this is something I just recently learned, but it's like when you talked about planning, and it's like if you don't have a plan, then you plan to fail. Because if
Yes.
you have, I mean, doesn't mean like your plan's gonna be followed step by step, but if you have no plan, how do you know like if you're doing good or not? It's like, come on now.
Yep.
And I think your channel does a great job of laying out the foundation. You do a lot of good bolo videos, a lot of good resourceful tips on how to grow your business. Like if you could just listen to one of Cayley's videos, you're gonna come away with at least 1% better. You're gonna learn a new brand where you're like, oh, now when I go out sourcing, I can go find that brand. So that's why I wanted to have you on for a while now. And it's really cool just to see the growth and how many people you're helping within the community. You can do this as a business. It's not dead. It's not over. The pre-owned clothing market, like if you look at the ThreadUp reports, it's supposed to triple by like 2030. So I really think more and more demand. So if you're building a business now, like you're setting yourself up for success. You two did a good job talking a lot about style-based sourcing, which is very
Mhm.
new to me over the last year.
It's
You're
new to me as
selling
well.
like you're on your Instagrams, you're selling a Hollister Y2K top for $25, and you're like, what the heck? Like, but there's a key though. There's a key. You can't just throw it up on eBay and expect it to sell. Kind of like, why is style-based sourcing becoming more common, and why should resellers even care or even implement this in their own business?
Well, first, I 100% agree that the pre-owned market in general is growing substantially. So anybody that says reselling is dead is absolutely wrong. And not only that, but this newer generation is really looking for pre-owned items. They want sustainable pieces. And that kind of leans into the style-based sourcing as well, because the younger crowd, they mostly are not looking for brands. They're actually looking for specific styles and things that look like things that celebrities they follow are wearing. And so that's where style-based sourcing can kind of lean in. And I love style-based sourcing because I for a long time focused on high sell-through rate bolos, which I still do. But sometimes you can't find, that abundantly. And so my goal when I go into that I always want to make sure that I am getting everything that could sell quickly and for a lot of money, which also means style based pickups. And until I understood style based sourcing, I was leaving behind tons of items. And once I realized what all was available style wise, I mean, I'm just picking up so much stuff and saving so much from the landfill, but also making so much money. And I think the benefit of style based sourcing is that if you know what factors and certain specific styles that people are looking for, you can apply it to really any brand and pick up a lot more items and make a lot more money.
Are you a reseller looking to make an extra bit of money? Well, we are hiring to our wholesale team of over 31 people where we buy inventory from nationwide. So if you love to source, but you don't want any of that drama like the listing and the photography, and you want to be able to multiply money fast, well then click the link down below because we are expanding our team. It is a great option to be able to double your money, especially if you source at flea markets, the Goodwill bins, estate sales, yard sales, rag houses. We are buying thousands of pieces of clothing every week. If this sounds like something you might be interested in, book a call down below. We'll get you onboarded. We'll get you set up with our brand list of over 300 brands, and we'd love to put some money in your pocket. Check it out. Yeah, being more effective with your time when you go out sourcing, and just like there's a comparison, just like a person who's been doing this for 5, 10 years, let's just say like a tech and sports versus someone who just started, they go to the same thrift store at the same time.
Mhm.
What's the difference between him pulling out 5,000 worth of product and the other person pulls out 500? Is because they leveled up that what they know, right? They deep dove style-based sourcing and different brands. So when it comes down to it, it's like you only know what you know, and that's why you got to be constantly, learning trends. And with women's clothing, more specifically, men's clothing doesn't change too much. But if you walk into a thrift store, 90% of the clothes are women's clothing. That's money to be made right there. And you do a good job teaching that. So I guess, where do you learn what's trending? Like, where do I go? Like, are you just following Instagram pages, or like, how do you stay on top of like these trends?
Well, I will say there were a few style-based things that I picked up before I heavily dove into style-based searching, but it really took off for me last year when I got to know Trash Pandas. You had them on your channel, so I'm sure your viewers know them. But Bethany, one of my reseller friends, actually started teaching me more about style-based sourcing, and so it just kind of took off from there. I got really excited about it after she showed me a few pieces. And from there, I started researching on my own. And what I really like to do to keep up with style, like what's trending on a regular basis, is number one is always checking the platform solds. I heavily focus on eBay. So I love studying eBay solds every single day and figuring out what's trending and notice what's frequently popping up as far as factors and styles go, regardless of brand. And I like comboing that with Google Trends. I'm not sure if you've ever used that or if you're familiar with it, but figuring out what people are searching for and then comparing that to what the actual solds on eBay or Poshmark are gives me a really good foundation to stand on to know what people are buying. And so I like doing both of those things. I know other people also like, following a fashion Instagram account or reading articles, but I lean more heavily on the data. So my preferred way to do it is both on Google Trends and the eBay sold comps.
Google Trends. You said it right there. That's a new thing to me about a year or so ago. Because Google is a search engine, right? It's like it's the biggest. So how can you identify these trend changes? Well, there's a beautiful graph. You could type in either like a style aesthetic like Y2K, or just like men's jeans or jackets, and it'll show you, I think, up to 20 years worth of data of the search traffic. So you know exactly when people are starting to search more for jackets or more for Y2K style aesthetics. And just like you can use that to know, okay, maybe I should start picking up jackets in, July, August, September. So you could start, hitting that, getting those items listed so that when the buyers come, you're ready. Yeah, I feel like that's not talked about enough. Google Trends is really a good one to have in your back pocket. So
Yeah.
that's good. That's good. Yes, and shout out Trash Pandas. They're amazing. I love it. I love their story too, because they don't come from a clothing background, but look at their dedication to like learning, and developing and putting it out there. So that's the cool part. The more that you learn, the better that you could be and teach it to others.
Absolutely.
So now, like, you've been doing this for a while. You have employees. Give us a sneak peek. What does your business like look like now? Are you your director and head of operations? You have employees. Like, what does it look like? Like, let's just say, like, what are you listing? Like, how many listings are you doing a day? Like, are you sourcing every day? What's your ASP? Like, give us a good ballpark view of what does it look like?
Yeah, well, it's ever evolving, so I can say that. It looks different probably every 6 months. I try to have a goal and aim towards it, so we're always kind of pruning everything and trying to get better at certain aspects. Um, for the last year, my goal has been to take over all the aspects of the business that I'm doing so that I can focus on other ventures like teaching you guys on YouTube. So that's kind of where my business is heading right now, is having everybody take over those aspects so that I can really focus on content creation and mentoring other people. But as far as business goes right now, we actually dropped our listings recently in order to just have a better workflow, I guess. So we're actually only listing 30 items a day right now. And we're trying to focus on really high sell-through rate things, which that's either bolo brands or it's high sell-through rate style-based items, which is kind of weird to say because they can have very high sell-through rates, and trying to focus on keeping a higher ASP. Last year, I focused on increasing our average sale price between all platforms from, I think it was at around 30, and I wanted it to be closer to 40. We actually achieved that at the beginning of this year. So I'd like to maintain our average sale price at $40. I still go sourcing, but since I've had employees take over, I'm really only doing it maybe once, sometimes twice a week. And
Mhm.
we've also evolved our business over heavily to buying from wholesalers, meaning individuals around the country that source for me at places like the bins and things like that. So
Mhm.
right now we're just trying to find more efficient ways to maintain a reselling business while also switching, over to being able to help as many people as possible. And unfortunately, I can't do that if I don't have time. So I've got to delegate some of those things out, and that's mainly what we're working on right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like, man, that hits me because I feel like I'm in that stuck between the rock and the hard place right now in the business. Like, we're doing, like, basically 90% of the work, and which is, like, a good problem to have. Like, we're ready to hire a shipper, we're ready to hire some processes out. And I think that's, like, the next step, for resellers, when you start doing, you're doing 5, 7, 8,000 a week in sales. I think that Do you think that that's, like, the next step, is starting to look to hire out some of these processes to be able to scale, right? Like, you can only do so much by yourself.
Right. I definitely will say I hired probably too quickly. And whenever anybody asks me this question, I try to be very realistic. When I started hiring, I had things that I could fall back on. So
Mm,
it really wasn't that detrimental to me. Looking back, I do think that I hired a little too quickly. But I would say that I recommend to everybody, if they think they want to hire, to really at first look at maximizing your efficiencies first, because
mm,
once you start adding on employees, that is a big complication in and of itself. Not only do you have to dedicate the time to find them and hire them, but you also have to dedicate the time to training them. And then you have to dedicate the time to following up with them and making sure that your processes are working. And then, God forbid, it doesn't work out. You have to restart that process over. And that's a big part of the background I came from in the corporate world, was hiring. So
mm.
I am very cautious to tell people to hire. I love my employees, but I do wish that I would have waited a little bit longer to hire. I think if you figure out that, yes, you've maximized every single possible efficiency that you can do, and there really is no time left in the day, then yes, in my opinion, the answer is, in order to scale, you do have to hire employees. And that would be the most, like, the next step for most people.
Yeah. Yeah, it's there's been comments and, funny ones that are just like, "Oh, I just started 3 months ago, I'm ready to hire someone." You ask, like, "Oh, how many are you shipping in a day?" And they're like, "5." And it's like, well,
Yeah.
unless you got a couple, grand saved up, maybe, but, I like to see as the indicator is, like, if you're shipping out a lot and you're getting to the point where you're spending like 2, 3 hours a day shipping, maybe that's the sign, because cash flow, right? You want to maximize cash flow, and it's hard to be in the negative month over month over month, paying for employees and you're not even bringing in money. I think we're finally at the point where we could afford at least a part-time shipper. If you want to build this for the long run, I feel like, don't burn out. Like,
Yes.
there's been resellers that come and go, and um, I think people just burn themselves out with, putting too much on their plate. Like, just too much. If you want to build a sustainable business, which I do, I don't want to be, I believe in the value of rest. Like, what do you take a day off? Like, you're posting videos every day. What is rest for you? Like, because you manage a full house. So, like, are you Monday through Friday, or what does that look like?
Yeah, actually, one of the reasons that I got into reselling in the first place was because I was, and in that corporate job, I worked 80 plus hours a week. And at one point, I didn't have a day off for several months. And that company, even though I was making a lot of money there and had moved up very quickly, I was getting no time off. I was so stressed out. I was doing reselling on the side. and eventually, grew it to the point where I was like, you know what? I think I can quit this job because I hate it so much and do reselling. So a big part of actually going full time with reselling is because I wanted a better work-life balance. And
Yeah.
so I made the commitment to myself and also when I hired people that there would be a very strong work-life balance. So I have very big boundaries around that just because I've been burnt so many times in the past. So we work Monday through Friday, and we only work 8 hours a day. We take an hour long lunch. Um, I try myself very hard not to work on the weekends. I'm not going to say every now and then I don't work like 30 minutes, an hour or something checking in, but I do try to get all of the work done that I need within my designated time. And you got to be efficient to do that. So I heavily focus on efficiencies, but big believer in rest, big believer in work-life balance and making it work within the hours you set for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's all process too. Like for us, just doing whatnot now, we're still trying to like get better. And like when you talk about efficiencies, like you can expand on it further. But for me, it's like an efficiency for us is like putting things that are close by, so we have to take less steps to go and grab a poly mailer, or like just the flow of our shipping station. Like if you can cut down 10 seconds on a
Mhm.
workflow, that could like save you an hour a week. And for me, an hour a week is money, right? Like that is key. That's an hour nap for me, an extra for a week. So that's key. And I think it's just an ever-changing process because everyone's growing their own business how they want to grow it, whether it's whatnot, eBay, sell it on Facebook, whatever. Um, I love that. So would you say like that's one of the reasons that you got into reselling is to set your own schedule, like that freedom?
Yeah, I mean, initially I was just selling things like that I had around my house, and then I got onto YouTube to look something up about eBay, and then I saw a video about reselling, and I was like, "People do that? Like, people go to thrift stores and flip it?" And then from there, it just took off, and I was like, "Oh, I can do this." So, yeah, it started as just a hobby of like, "I think I could do that. That sounds like fun. I go to thrift stores anyways." But eventually, like I said, over time, it just kept growing and growing, and I was like, "You know what? Like, I think I could do this full time and not have to work 80 hours a week." And so, yeah, that is one of the main reasons that I went ahead and flipped into it.
Yeah. What makes this fun for you? Like what is it? What is the fun part? I have fun. I like doing the live selling. That's fun for me, but what's it fun? What's the fun part for you?
Yeah, I think I agree. I think reselling is it's a bunch of fun. And even though I do try to look at it from like a business perspective, I just love the creativity of reselling because I look back to, even 5 years ago when I was doing reselling and how much it's evolved until now. I've accomplished a lot of things, set a lot of goals. And I think the most fun part for me is like setting a goal to change a metric in your business or try to achieve something or even doing live selling and coming out of your shell if you've never done live selling before and just setting a goal and crushing it and nailing it and the growth and education that comes from that is really rewarding for me because I just love learning and trying new things out. So I think it's the creativity and just constant growth that I love.
Yeah. No, that's cool. I mean, I think most people would say just for like most people, they like, you'll see a lot of resellers get into it. Their one characteristic is, I love to shop, I love to source. That's good. And I love that, but that also can be a bad thing too. Cause as well as anybody, like, there can be a shopping problem. And, it's, like I think sourcing too is very fun, but it can also be like you got to be able to manage what you source to get moving through your business. But yeah,
Absolutely.
I've always loved reselling. I'm very analytical, data driven, so it is cool to be able to hit the goals that you want to hit, and see that come to pass. So okay, your business, you're doing 30 a day. What's a goal maybe for this year? Like how do you want it to change versus what it was last year?
I have some pretty weird goals that each year they get just way and way different and left field. But last year I actually stated that I wanted to hit $1 million in sales for the reselling platforms. And now I'm looking at actually scaling back a little bit again so that I can have more time to coach and do things like that. Hit we were very close to $500,000 in sales, so I was actually on track to probably break $1 million in sales over the next couple of years, which was my goal. Now we're actually looking at scaling back, so I think I'm actually changing my goals up. But one of my big goals for this year is actually to reduce the size of our inventory and get a little bit of a smaller inventory, get some space back, and really heavily focus on making sure that items don't become stale and moving them, and figuring out, I know a lot about SEO, I know a lot about customers and getting things to move, but figuring out a structure where things aren't sitting any longer than 6 months. So that's our new goal right now. So it's changed a lot, but I'm excited to see how we can reduce inventory down. I'd actually like to cut my inventory in about half and
Mhm.
then switch to a structure where we're not holding on to anything any longer than 6 months.
Yeah. No, I love that. Yeah, and I love what you're doing. It's changed my life. Reselling's changed my life. I come from a restaurant background for 15 years, and
Oh, I didn't
just
know
being
that.
able yeah, yeah, so just being able to, like, I don't know, it's not buy back your time, but to be able to, like, have your time. I mean, yeah, you're gonna work harder, um, and you're gonna be working on new things that you've never I didn't know nothing about clothing 4 years ago, but, just to be able to have your time back, be able to grow a business, and then, to take your step is, like, you're teaching people to do it. Like, if you look up just on Google quick search, like, the average median income for a single family home is $54,000. I think that you could hit 54,000 net reselling clothing.
Absolutely.
So, just if you're anywhere where I was, you can do this. You just got to believe that you can do it. And I really think that what can fast track you is getting like a coach like yourself or joining some mentorship. I mean, there's a ton out there. Because our time is so valuable, y'all. Like, yes, there's free videos. Yes, you could do it all, but it's learning how to do it. And if you could cut down the time and what would take you a year by yourself and say it takes you 6 months with a coach or a helper, I think that's huge. Like, my time is everything. Like, I could be dead tomorrow, but if I can fast track the time, that's why it's really actually going to be more and more needed as the industry grows. More teachers, more people that are teaching like principles and helping people develop a business plan within reselling, like that's going to be more in need. And then, like, for Whatnot, it's like there's nothing. Like, if you go on Whatnot, like there's videos like that are 3 years old. There's not a lot of like help. What do I do? How do I set up the shipping? How do I ship out the orders? Like, there's nothing. So I think like we're still really early on in the coaching, helping people get going doing this business. Um, and I think that there's a huge opportunity for that to help people, especially when it comes to clothing with the trends changing and stuff. So, yeah, like, okay, so going back to more like style based stuff, I know I kind of been everywhere, but things pop in my mind and I just wanted to ask. So, like, okay, trending style aesthetics, what are the top three that you're picking up right now that we need to be aware?
Ooh, well, I think all 3 of mine fall into one aesthetic, and it would be Y2K, and I think my viewers would know that too if they're watching this, because I show them on the What Sold videos a lot. They've actually become, I would say, like 25% of my sales is just simply Y2K stuff, but mostly looking for Y2K tops, Y2K dresses, and then men's Y2K hoodies are, like, my favorite thing to sell, and they're all Y2K stuff, so I think if people can get that figured out and really study down into it, you can make a lot of money that way, and you'd also realize just how much stuff you're walking right by.
Yeah, Y2K, so I'm thinking of ones you uh have sold these for crazy money, which I was passing them all day, like Hollister, American Eagle, Abercrombie, like the puff print hoodies. Like, I was passing those up all day, and then I was seeing you were selling them for 30, $40. That's a good example. And then what would Y2K also fall into, like, extreme colors, or, like, what is something that you would be like, "Yeah, that's Y2K," if you were looking at it?
It's really hard to describe just in words. Just I think a visual would be more helpful. But basically anything that you can think of. I'm really fortunate that I lived through the 2000s. So like I was in, middle school, high school around that time, so it's really easy for me to visualize. But if you think back to the 2000s of like what everybody was wearing, what people were buying in the malls, um, you know, older labels is probably mainly what I would look for, and they're looking for really fitted type stuff. So when it comes to tops, if you're seeing like a super long length top, but it's super fitted and you can tell it's
Mhm.
an older label, those things are a good indicator that you might have a good Y2K top, and they're super easy to overlook because most of the time they're pretty plain looking and they're not
Yep.
in brands that you would think would be worth getting. And then, for the men's Y2K hoodies, same thing. You're looking for an older label. It's probably a mall brand that was popular back in the 2000s. And then you're just looking for that overall, Y2K look to it. I wish I had a better way to describe it, but it's
Yeah,
gotta have a
I
lot
should
of
put some
visuals.
animations. Well, I'll edit it. Maybe I could put some, because yeah, it's hard to describe
Yeah,
words, like, like people, I mean, it could be anything, right? But yeah, so that's a really crazy one. I mean, and it's crazy to think that technically 20 years ago, 2004, I mean, Y2K is now technically vintage. So,
I know.
um, yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. Um, Now I want your take, like, what's going on in the resale market overall? Like, should I even start a business doing this? Is it worth it? What's going on?
I definitely think that reselling has gotten more competitive. I think that there is an abundance of pre-owned clothing, and I do think that there are more shoppers. But I also think that there's more sellers, so things have become, a lot more competitive. And not to say that it's so competitive that nobody could start, because I definitely don't believe that. I think there's enough for everybody, but I do think that you have to know what you're doing in order to sell things quickly and to recoup your costs and then make some money and stay in business. And I think one of the biggest shifts that I saw specifically last year was actually style based stuff and just knowing what's trending regardless of brand, because brands come and go. Think about Lululemon last year and the year before that, bolos, you could pick up anything. Now
Mhm.
I'm very careful if I pick up a Lululemon item because I'm not sure if that style is going to sell, how oversaturated it might be. And so people, I think, should be, I guess, do a little bit more research. And the shift I saw was just paying attention to trends and what is selling, again, regardless of brand. And if you know those things, then it'll lead you to the brands that are trending. And it's been really helpful to me to study trends, and I don't feel the pressure anymore of having to keep up with all the brands, even though it
Mhm.
has been more competitive.
Yeah. I feel like the competition is not like other resellers necessarily. I feel like it's more like thrift stores. Like if you are mainly sourcing at thrift stores, like they've gotten on, guys. Like if you've seen some content based on the West Coast, like I saw a button up cinch shirt at our Goodwill for $25.
My goodness.
Crazy. And I just think that, if you could stay one step ahead of the thrift store, especially with style-based stuff, they're always a little bit behind, right? Like,
They are.
there's like obviously Lululemon is priced up to $25 for leggings, but like if you could stay one step ahead, and good luck to Goodwill learning about style-based stuff. I think that they're just now catching on with the brands and stuff like that. But um yeah,
Yeah,
it has gotten a lot more competitive.
not just thrift stores either, but even competitive, your competitors in reselling, other resellers. Like, you're right, thrift stores are behind. Like, they'll learn something and then start to price them up, but generally when they start to price stuff up is when that trend is going down in the
Yep,
brands.
yep.
And so if you can learn, everyday items that nobody's looking at, thrift stores and also, other resellers, then you're able to not only capitalize on what you're frequently coming across, things like those mall brands that we talked about in Y2K styles earlier. But you're going to stay ahead of the thrift stores because, like you said, they're not picking up very quickly on the style-based stuff as well.
Yeah, and this is what I love about reselling is you could pick a brand that's bad, but have a specific category in that brand be really good. Like Urban Pipeline cargo shorts. Urban Pipeline, terrible brand, but Urban Pipeline cargo shorts in the summer has like a 75% sell-through rate. You're not going to make $1 million, but you'll find them at the bins for a couple bucks, an easy flip for 17 to 25 plus shipping. So that's an example. Another one is like Dickies Flex pants, better sell-through rate than Carhartt pants on eBay. And these brands are like very plain and boring and ordinary. Another one is chore coats, like Land's End chore coat. No one's jumping into the bin at the Goodwill bins for that. But if you know that chore coats are crazy hot right now and sell for great money, you'll have that competitive advantage.
The great thing about those too is you're coming across them often. There,
Mhm.
there's an abundance of them. Those are my favorite bolos to figure out are
Yeah,
the brands that nobody cares about.
yeah, and also too, like there's this big like common thing. Oh, you're giving away all the secrets. Also, this too, though, keep in mind is like even though you could tell someone all of the information, give it all away, there's only a few people that actually act on the information.
Right.
So it's like your people are saying, "Oh, you're ruining the market." It's like, yeah, but at the same time, the people that are actually going to take the information and apply is very few, like
I
so
agree.
few, because people don't like hard work. It's too hard. I just want it done for me. um which is crazy. But yeah, so I love that. I love it. No, that's really good. Yeah, resale markets definitely changed quite a bit in the last few years. I've had to look to just source differently. Like I can't go to the local retail thrift stores here. It's just I can't pay $25 for a cinch shirt. I'm sorry, Goodwill, but I just kind of laughed when I saw that. But yeah, Daily Refinement actually said something on a stream a couple days ago, and it came from the Buy Now documentary on Netflix that clothing manufacturers produce. I think it was like 2.5 billion pieces of clothing every year, and only 500 million sell. So that
Mm.
means 2 billion pieces of clothing get thrown away every year. So
I
I'm
mean,
like,
just look at the bins. It's there's so much.
yeah. Yeah, the rotation at the Portland bins is like, I think like every 15 minutes. So they give you just enough time to where people are done fist fighting over towels. And then it settles down and then they roll it back out and you're like, wow, that was fast. It's like it's coming in, coming out. Like they don't have time to let it sit there all day. Um, which is a good opportunity for people to start growing their business.
You'll have to tell those statistics to all the people that hate resellers and think that we're stealing clothing from people.
You've gotten the comments. I know every person that does resell content is the number one comment is you're stealing from the poor. I don't even, there's no real thing you could even say to that because you don't even want to waste time
Right.
explaining. But if you think that you haven't seen, those documentaries, you don't know what happens in the real world of clothing production,
Right.
especially with fast fashion and stuff. But um, so like you've been doing this for a while. Like if you were to start over, what would you do differently and why?
Oh, I actually made a video on this last year. That was actually one of my most popular videos. So maybe I should make another one.
Mhm.
But actually, I think it was the number one thing I said in that was actually to create a plan before you start reselling. As we talked about at the beginning of this video, is just to figure out. I would try to figure out what's available to me and what I can easily do, and I think that's something a lot of resellers miss is they try to do things that are too hard for them to do. You wanna do things that are easy to you, that come abundantly to you, um, just to maximize the time and the availability that you have, and so I would really look at what was around me and go, "Okay, what can I frequently come across? What can I easily source? How can I get these items listed in an efficient manner?" And then I would do so many things differently. So let me just throw that out there. But the number
Mhm.
two thing I would do differently is to keep everything simple. I talk about minimalist reselling a lot, and that's what I'm trying to do for my business is just keep things as streamlined, as easy and simple as possible. And, don't fall into the trap of you've got to have all these fancy things, like you got to have ring lights and you've got to have
Mhm.
all the fancy packaging. I think that those would be the two things that I would start to do completely differently than how I had started.
Yeah. Wait a minute. Are you tracking your numbers? If you're not tracking your numbers, how do you know you're actually profitable in your business? Too many times I see a lot of beginner resellers not tracking their numbers and they think they're profitable on items that they sell, but in actuality, they are losing thousands of dollars, which is why I'm offering, link down below, a free reseller spreadsheet to help you start to build a good foundation for your resale business. I'll go over it real quick. You can download it below. Really simple to use, but it's going to help you go further faster in your resale business. A thing that often is said in business is what can be tracked can be measured, and what can be measured can be improved upon, which is why this spreadsheet is going to help you, especially if you're just starting out. Follow the instructions. You have an inventory SKU spreadsheet. You got month by month, line by line accounting, and at the end of the day, you could track your year-to-date sales. I did this because I just see so many people thinking that they're profitable in their business when they're actually not. So now back to the episode. What is your because you're listing 30 a day and that's a good amount. Do you ever get, I mean it's different for everybody, but do you ever have like a death pile accumulate, or do you always like to have a back stock of product that you can always be like, well, we have that, like, cuz sometimes sourcing is can be hit and miss sometimes. So what does that look like?
I would love to have a death pile, but I've
Yeah.
not had one or been able to keep one for the past few years, and I don't recommend a death pile to most people. I do think it's a good idea if you're someone who can be consistent to have, I try to get like a week ahead. So if I know I'm going to list, however many, if I'm going to list 100 in a week, then I'd like to have 100 items in backstock essentially and work ahead. I'm hardly ever there because we're doing so many things at one day. And when we were listing 50 a day, it was really hard to keep up with
Yeah.
sourcing. And so now that we're back at 30, that was one of the main reasons that we decided actually to drop to 30 as well, is just to reduce the amount of time sourcing and just focus on a higher ASP. And so I would love to have a death pile, but because I have to drive so far to get items, it's not very likely that I'm able to do that. We normally drive at least 1 hour away, one way to get to a good sourcing location. So it's just whatever I can find while I'm there. And unfortunately, I can't usually pad too much.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah, I mean, I live an hour from the thrift store, and
You
for
get it
me, it's
then.
only, yeah, it's only been, like a whole day sourcing, and I can only find 100, 200 items, if that. That's at the Goodwill bins, doing a couple thrift stores. Plato's Closet was good. So yeah, it's just like you gotta put a lot more effort, I think, into sourcing if you want to have a good resale business.
I
Because like
agree.
the days of just walking into a thrift store and go, oh, there's a Chief Joseph Pendleton sitting right there. Oh boy, it's like that's gone at 8 in the morning.
Yeah.
The moment you wake up, like the thrift stores in Portland, there's lines at the red, white, and blue. 6 a.m. They don't open till 8,
Oh
and
my
there's
gosh.
old lady covered in blankets waiting outside. It's like, are you kidding me?
Oh my
It's
gosh.
like it's 2 out. Like I don't have time for this. So it's gotten so competitive to the point where if you're not going to, at least five, in a day, and you want to do this full time, it's gonna be hard. I mean, we're all range. Like you live in Ohio, I live in Portland area. It's getting to be a little bit more difficult. So that's why I'm always like thinking outside the box for getting inventory. What are maybe some outside the box ways that you've been able to kind of like add on in addition to your sourcing methods?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much the only out of the box thing that we do is wholesaling, and I
Mm.
still think that's very, very new to the reselling world. I just, saw that start to explode at the beginning of last year, and so You mentioned resellers who have shopping addictions who love to source, but they don't love to list it. Those are actually the people that I want to work with. So we have kind of targeted people in that way to say, hey, if you don't like the list, like we'd love to potentially wholesale with you because we do list. I've got the staff to list. We're just having a hard time getting inventory. And so that was one of the ways, just additionally, that we've brought in extra sourcing.
Yeah.
Besides that, we just simply talk to everybody that we know. So even in my community, like if we're having a conversation with someone, not to get anything out of it, but we tell people, hey, we're resellers. We sell pre-owned clothing. And over time, I would say probably at least once a month now, somebody reaches out to us just within our own community and says, hey, I've got stuff I'm getting rid of. You can have it. Can you come pick it up? Can I drop it off? And, it took a long time to develop those relationships, but over the last year, we've done that, and so now we have that as an additional, I guess, sourcing opportunity, although they're really just donating the items to us.
Yeah. Well, I mean, better than going to Goodwill, I guess, or
Mhm.
just some other place where you don't know could be mismanaged. Like, at least you are making the most with the least, you're
Yeah,
putting it back into the economy. Yeah, I feel like that's not talked about enough. And our life has changed, like our resale life has changed by doing that, by, just mentioning it on a YouTube video. And now our like there's no way I'm sourcing 1,000 items a week at all. There's no way. And just to be able to like grow and build a business with other people that want to grow their business, I think that's a really good way to start a resale business, is reselling to other resellers that are making good money. That's a
I
great way to
agree.
like, because you can start turning the money over fast and start making money. You don't need to list, no photos, especially have a low cost of goods.
Yeah.
um like, what are your, this is still really new, even though it's been around for a couple years, but what's your thoughts on live selling? And when are we gonna see more live selling from you?
I actually did do live selling on both Whatnot and Poshmark Live quite a bit last year, and a little bit towards the end of 2023. We went pretty heavy at it for a few months. I actually really liked live selling, but I didn't have enough time to dedicate to being consistent on there. So what I did is I used my employees to run shows when I wasn't there, and it
Mhm,
just did not work. People wanted to come to see me.
mhm.
They did not want to come to see my employees, even though my employees did a great job. I just learned that didn't work for my business model, and I couldn't commit to being there all the time. A buyers that would come to the show, most of them would be my subscribers, and I actually don't think that they had very much intention to buy.
Mm,
And so I think they just came to talk to me, and so I actually that was a failed experiment on my part,
yeah,
really, and so I learned that live selling wasn't for me, and that's really okay, and it's not to say that I would never try it again, if things change in my business, but at the point in time when we tried it, I just couldn't commit to doing multiple shows a week. But there are people who have done that. I mean, Sean and Bethany at Trash Pandas started with 0 social media following, grew their whatnot. I mean, and they're doing fantastic. So
mm,
I think it works for some people and it doesn't. Plus, I don't have that like lively personality. I'm not like
yeah.
a show person, I don't think, and I think that was a detriment to me as well. But we did try it out. I had a lot of fun, and the shows were very successful when it was my show, but when it was my other employees, not so much.
Yeah, yeah, there's a lot, yeah, a lot to unpack in that one. It's I think becoming more popular, but I I can't put on like an act, so I gotta be myself. So I definitely need to make sure I get a good bit of sleep, drink a good couple cups of coffee, and then do the live show. But yeah, afterwards, I don't want to like talk to anyone. I just
Yeah.
want to like go to bed, because you are like, you want to describe the items, right? You can't just hold it up. And I mean, you can, but when you're like more pre-loved clothing and there's some, you want to just explain the material and what it would go with, or maybe a style aesthetic in there, you're wanting to like explain it a bit more. But yeah, it's not for everyone, but I do think everyone should try it because you never
Yeah.
know. But yeah, and I think there's a big disconnect between, because you're the face of your brand, and you see Renzi, you see other people that have gone on there, and they're like, they want Ryan, it's like, I don't know, but there comes to a point where like, hey, maybe I could scale out of this, but yeah, we're still experimenting with that.
It
um
works really well for some people,
yeah.
using other people in their shows. It didn't work for me. But
Hmm.
I am glad I tried it because if I ever do have to pivot my business over to live selling for whatever reason, like I know how to do it. I know how to be successful over there. I just did not have the time to do that many shows a week. So if I needed to, I could. And I am glad that I tried it out just to see what it was like. And you never know when one thing you're going to try in your business really takes off and becomes the priority source of your income. So I think if I wouldn't have tried that, I'd always be wondering if I
Yeah,
should try it or not.
for sure. I think that if you're a YouTuber or you have a big TikTok following or Instagram, I think you should try it because people want to, like, it's your community. So it's like you said, like, some people just want to come and like talk with you or support you in any way. Like, you see Harry Tornado selling hot sauce and soap, and it's like, what? It's like, so you never know. It might not be like specifically what you talk about on your YouTube channel, but maybe you create a product where you could sell it. Doesn't need to be soap or hot sauce, but whatever. Yeah, it's pretty interesting on how that's evolved and changed, and more people coming on. I feel like brands are going to start coming on it, more. Like, you'll see like a
Yeah,
Lululemon rep selling their Lulu. I don't know, weird time to be alive when it comes to reselling, but I still think eBay and Amazon are the two of the best ways to start making money right now.
I agree.
um
There's also celebrities getting on Whatnot
yeah.
too. So it's becoming more and more popular. You actually mentioned earlier that there's not really a whole lot of content out for Whatnot. And
Mhm.
it's funny that you say that because I made a video like I don't know, probably about a year ago, maybe a little less, about setting up a Whatnot show, and it wasn't very popular when I posted it, and for some reason, over the last month, that video has taken off.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of resellers are trying Whatnot, and I think a lot of people are getting on that platform right now.
Yeah. Also, too, if you have a hard time sourcing, who we sell to is resellers. I would say the majority of people that buy in our shows are people that like either don't have the time to go out shopping at thrift stores, or they just like maybe live in the middle of Antarctica and can't find any
Mhm.
product. I think that it's still really underrated to come to Whatnot and just like buy stuff to help you in addition to what you're already doing. Because I've seen Patagonia sell for $7. I've seen Lulu sell for $5. So it's like sometimes that cost of goods could even be cheaper than going to the thrift store.
I
Have you thought
agree.
of shopping on Whatnot, or like, I don't know, like, I don't know.
Yeah, I actually think that that's what was happening in a lot of our shows was we had a lot
Mm,
of resellers who were buying at low cost to flip. Like I said, I think most of my viewership was and when they come from YouTube, they are trying to flip. They're not actually trying to buy for themselves. I have thought about it for us, but I'm not sure that I have the time to sit through a Whatnot show
yep.
to possibly not know for sure if I'm gonna get something. And so for me, because I have evaluated it, I think that it's more more time effective for me to just go ahead and source myself or talk to a wholesaler
Mhm.
through a video call and get more items that way than it would be for me to sit on a Whatnot show. But I have considered it.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, because I always say like, "Hey, you can be in your pajamas eating popcorn, buying Lululemon," and they're like, "What are you
Yeah.
talking about? I'm doing that right now." One lady was shopping at Walmart, and it's like it's cool that you could do that, but also too, you do have to sit like unless they list each individual item.
Right.
I know Wayne with K-Way Shop does that. I think Chris Flip the World does that. So yeah, it just depends. Just depends.
Get that bundle
Um,
discount too on the shipping.
Right, right. That is really good. You could buy like we shipped out 13 items for 877 shipping.
It's
I don't
awesome.
know how that works on the Whatnot end, but there's no way they're probably making money on that one.
I think
Um
they have a contract with, USPS similarly to Poshmark. Not
mhm.
the exact same as Poshmark, but they have some kind of a contract with USPS where they get better deals.
Yeah. This kind of goes into the next question, but I think it's really underrated for people that, don't have a social media or like they don't want to do it, but they have a hard time finding inventory. Something we've done really simple is just like message people on Instagram under the reselling hashtag and just say, hey, I'm, with this business and I'm trying to buy inventory. We can pay you to shop for us or pay you to go source for us. If this sounds interesting, let us know. I think that anyone can do that. Like anybody, like that's freely available to just
Yeah.
message people and, find people to pay them to source.
There are crazy opportunities that just a lot of people won't try or know about.
Yeah. I mean, that's how we've been just, hey, message this person. And, yeah, you're going to get more no's than yeses, but that one yes can change your whole business. So,
Right.
no, I love that. I love it. That was like my next question. If someone's having a hard time finding inventory, that's what I would suggest. Would you suggest anything different or?
Um, yeah, I mean, I agree. Even if you're not actually asking, somebody directly for inventory, just putting yourself out there everywhere you go, even at thrift stores, like talking to the thrift store employees, not with the intention of getting anything from them, but just saying hi to them, getting to know their name, and you'd be surprised at how many relationships that you start to build can end up benefiting your business in the long run. And then as far as like getting more goes, if you're not the kind of person that wants to put yourself out there, I know a lot of people aren't quite at that point yet where they
Mhm.
want to do that. Learn about all of those brands that everybody is passing on, because there are big opportunities in, Old Navy was one of my best selling brands last year. I would
Mhm.
have never have thought that. And so if you're somebody that's struggling, try to maximize where you're already going and start, researching brands that you're frequently coming across, and you'll probably likely be picking up a lot more stuff.
Yeah, I mean, all I have to say is in the Whatnot show, we started picking up Old Navy just plus size. I said, Cayley Elaine sold this for $40, and boom, starts getting bids. And go, boom, there we go. But if I don't say that, and then can't even give it away for $1. So yeah, Old Navy is blows my mind because the
Yeah,
dresses and the tops. I mean, they got to have some nice look to it, but
right.
yeah, it is incredible. Um, so that's good. That's good. The inventory is out there, guys. I think it's just we're not, thinking in new ways about how we can get that. For me, my life changed when we put out an ad on Facebook in a simple. It wasn't even a paid ad. I just went and joined a buy and sell group in our local area. I just say, hey, we're looking for these brands. Let us know. Storage unit manager contacted us. Said we have 4 10 by 30 units that the person hasn't paid for in years, and we're taking it all to the dump. Do you want it? And I go, yes. And I drove that same day. We made the agreement, and they had already been throwing it in the dump.
Mm,
Dead stock Levi's, dead stock Arc'teryx from 2007. And they're like, we're just throwing it away. And I'm like,
amazing.
no. So I did whatever I could, was like, here's the money, take it, stop throwing it away, and I'll have it out of your units. And it took about 6 months though. But yeah, it's crazy. It's not talked about enough. Like we market our eBay listings, but we don't market our own business as far as like our sourcing. Like put out, make a Facebook post and just say, hey, we're buying inventory. Go put signs out. Go put there's a radio ad you can run. I mean, there's so many old ways to market that um I mean that just aren't talked about. Like, there's more. Like the thrift store's like the best and great way, but then like what can you do in addition to it? Like call people. I don't know, whatever. I mean, the inventory's out there. Like we have a friend who's a junk removal service guy, and he just messaged me 10 bags of stuff that were headed to the trash. And then I looked inside: Carhartt, Adidas, some
I
Danner
saw that.
boots,
It's
brand new
amazing.
Doc Martens. He's like, yeah, that was on the truck going to the dump today. And I was like, so I said, well, I said, we'll split the profits, we'll run it all and whatnot, and 50-50. And he's like, oh, well, what am I gonna get? I'm like, you're probably gonna make like $500 or more. He's like,
Yeah.
wow. He's like, and then he told me, oh, we've thrown away truckloads like this. And I'm like, don't tell me that. Like, don't tell me that. And he's like, wow, okay, great. So a junk removal company, that's another one.
That's
Um,
amazing. I love a storage unit idea too.
yeah, storage units. That's one of the fastest growing real estate ventures, is because people got a lot of stuff, right? So
Mhm.
investors are trying to buy storage units. Um, but not everyone, people pass away, people get divorced, people stop making payments. Yeah, it's gotten more competitive, but it's also fun too. Would you ever do any content around storage units? I know there's people that like those videos pop off.
Yeah, I have done some storage unit, digging, but I don't think I made content about it other than, like, a couple pictures, but it was different than the way you're talking about because it isn't like I'm clearing out somebody's storage unit that's left.
Mm,
It was resellers who have a humongous death pile. I'm talking, like tens of thousands of items, like multiple storage units, and, reached out to me. Some people in my area reached out to me, and so I went digging through all their stuff that's been there for years, and honestly, amazing stuff. So I've done a little bit of storage unit digging, but it was in a little bit different context. But yeah, I don't know, I don't like the idea of buying an entire storage unit like some people do, just because I can't guarantee that, I'm not gonna spend time to throw most of it away. I'm very picky with what I get, so I like the idea of doing that if I'm able to select through.
right. Yeah. It's literally, you have no idea.
Yeah.
I've bought some super small ones in the past year, and one had like, I was like, oh, great clothing. And it's like, no, it was 4 bags of trash. Like someone's trash. They just stored it in there. Hey, have fun. Thank you.
It's
Thank
the
you.
gamble.
And it's not easy too. It's like you're having to haul, most of it into the dump.
Right.
Um, but yeah, no, I love that. Not just going over last year's business. Was there anything that, you had to overcome in your business last year that, something that you learned, you know, what was like the biggest thing that you had to overcome last year?
Um, well, I think one of the biggest things was just making changes for myself and all of my employees. A lot of people have a hard time with change. I am not one of them. I love change, but not everybody does. And so having my employees and implementing some pretty big changes with them was kind of difficult. For instance, we completely switched over our inventory system, and
Mm,
it was a really big process for everyone. It took a long time to get used to the new system. Now everybody loves it, and I can't, none of us can imagine going back. But I would say that was one of the biggest things that I learned last year. And I know not everybody's going to relate to this because they don't have employees, but just even people you work with, if you work with a wholesaler or really anybody, your partner. But implementing change is really, really hard. And so I found, I guess, an easier way to do that and to kind of ease into things with everyone and make changes.
You went from more of like the bin system to a SKU system. Is that right?
Yes, basically.
Okay, cool. And where do you learn about business? Like, do you watch other resellers? Do you have some people that you can recommend where you're trying to take, maybe some principles and apply them to your business? Where are you learning it? What books are you reading?
So I kind of hate to say this because I feel like it makes me sound, but I don't really watch a whole lot of other reselling content.
Mhm,
And I do this because I feel like it can be a really big distraction from my own goals. And I
mhm,
think that if you watch other people, you're very easily inspired to pivot and to change things.
mhm,
And I've learned over the years that what works best for me specifically is just really focusing in on what I'm trying to do
mhm,
and only doing that. So I don't watch a whole lot of other people. I like checking in with some resellers online, seeing how they're doing. Some of them we work with on content creation. So I do have to check in every now and then, but I don't really like to learn from other people. I know that that sounds bad.
Mm.
But one of my favorite ways to learn is by studying business outside of reselling.
Yeah.
I came from a very corporate business background, again, nothing to do with reselling. And I was able to apply a lot of those strategies from the many years of experience that I had from
Mhm.
that into reselling. And I found that to be wildly effective
Mhm.
in what I'm doing because I mean, technically every business resells if you think about it. If they
Mhm.
sell a product, they're buying it at a low cost and then they're selling it to the consumer for more. And so lately I have found that studying business when reselling isn't involved has really helped me to scale. So for instance, I just love watching YouTube and podcasts and things, but I'll look up something on marketing, like how to market to buyers. It won't have anything to do with reselling, but I learn
Yeah.
about the psychology behind it. And so I mostly watch podcast videos. There's not any one particular person that I watch. I'm just looking up stuff for whatever situation I'm trying to work on.
Yeah, I love that. Well, I feel like you found the blueprint that works for you and you just double down on it. It's like, yeah, you can get the analysis paralysis, like, oh, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna sell video games 1 month, and now, oh no, I watched another video. I'm gonna start doing clothing, and then you're like, oh, now you don't know what you're gonna do. So yeah, I think like you find what you would like and what's around you, and then you just go all in on that. And yeah, like it's a thing. Like you're gonna watch YouTube content on reselling, and you're gonna just be watching it all day, and then you're like, "Well, how many listings did I do?
Right.
None." And you're like, "Oh, are you just watching TV? Are you just watching us?" Which
Yeah.
is cool to hear when people go, "Oh, I love putting this on the background while I work." It's like, there you go. That's what this podcast is for. You don't need to. That's why there's no visuals or anything. But very cool. I love that. And yeah, you'll find that when I started learning more just about business and marketing and how it all works, it's like my mind expanded and I was like, oh my goodness, wow, this
Yeah.
is this is
Wh-
the next step.
When you only look up like reselling related videos, your scope is so small that sometimes you can't even think about, external concepts and things like that. So that's why I really like doing it that way. And books, I am not a reader. I don't like reading books.
Hmm.
If there's a book I want to read about stuff, I put it on audio. The only
Yeah,
physical book I read is the Bible. I'm not a
yeah,
book reader.
yeah. No, and then it's so cool to live today. You can watch a book, you can hear a book,
Right.
you can there's just so many ways, and I think we all just learn so differently. But I love that. I love it. So if someone is struggling right now and they want to get into reselling, they're watching you on the other side, but they just don't know how to make it all work, what is like a piece of advice that you can give where they can actually put this plan into action? Like what do you think that they should focus on to make this work?
I think that, especially in the beginning, one of the best things people can do is focus on higher sell-through rate items. I think a big mistake people make is not knowing how to look up sell-through rate and not sticking to a minimum sell-through rate for yourself. It doesn't have to be 100% like, I try to focus on, but I think it needs to be something. I would say 50% or higher. And I think you need to know how to look up sell-through rate. And I think people avoid that for a really, really long time, and once they stop avoiding it, they realize, "Oh, crap, I should have been doing this all along." And I think that I don't wanna say it's the number 1 key to success, but I think it's one of the top 3 keys to success in reselling. And I think if you start off by just forcing yourself to look up sell-through rates, your eyes will be open on what's valuable and what's not. And you're also going to learn a lot more quickly because if you look up, a St. John's Bay item and you're like, oh, this has a poor sell through rate. But then you look up a St. John's Bay thermal shirt, and you see that sell through rate change. That's how you're going to start learning what styles and what factors people are looking for that you can apply to different brands. And if you don't do that, then you're just on the internet are telling you, and relying on what other people on the internet are telling you is not gonna work for your business.
Right, and they may be only finding things that are available in their area too. So,
Right.
yeah, it's pretty cool because just to see like the difference between Amazon sellers and eBay sellers is like Amazon sellers, they scan things with their phone, and the metric that they're looking at is a best sales rank, and that's kind of like eBay sell-through rate.
Mhm.
And they don't buy a product unless it hits a certain BSR. And I think that when eBay, you can get started so easily. You're not scanning items and you're just listing, and you can get to 1,000 items before you even know, oh, I should be looking for sell-through rate. And you're like, yeah, and I just say, like, you might have to just delete everything out of your store and start over.
Yeah.
Um, because, it's tough. It's tough to get started that way. And it actually blows my mind how many people get started on eBay and they don't learn that. It's even though it's talked about like to death on every channel. Um, it's crazy. It's crazy. Well, I'm going to put all the links to Cayley's resources down below. She has an amazing community teaching you how to actually do this. Y'all, the opportunity is huge. And if you're feeling like you're working at a 9 to 5 or you want to make some extra money on the side, this is a great way to get started. And yes, you can turn it into a profitable 6-figure business, but maybe you just need some extra help. So go check out her stuff down below. Highly recommend it. We'll have to have you back round two, maybe talking, maybe some more changes about what's going on in your business. Maybe you're doing live selling full time. We'll see. But yeah, appreciate you having me on. Thank you guys. I hope you have a blessed week and we'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.